Yo. Mm-mm.
Yo,
How's it going,
yo,
everybody? Oh, Nick, what's up, dude?
what's up?
Yo,
Hello.
guys, thank you for rolling through. Everyone, why don't you take a second to comment in the chat where you are calling in from? Drop it in the chat. Also, let me do this. Boom. Cool. Sick. We got Florida. That's awesome. Maui, Hawaii. Let's go. New York City, Ann Arbor, Manchester. Yes. What's up, Connor? San Francisco, Nick from Santa Cruz, Jay, Edmonton. That's awesome. Detroit, Cleveland, Tempe, Houston, SoCal, Denver, Oklahoma. This is awesome. Houston, Joey, what's up, dude? Cali, Toronto, North Carolina, San Diego. This is awesome. Love the range. Denver, Richmond, Seattle, NorCal, Bend, Oregon. I was there for the first time back over the summer. So much fun. Lydia, nice, from Alaska. Let's go. Florida, Denver. Oh, what's up, Brendan? You made it. Blair from San Diego. Dude, this is awesome. Sweet. Thank you guys so much for rolling through. Let me make sure people who are in the waiting room can get in. Awesome. And so, just another little icebreaker. Can you guys comment in the chat? Who are you listening to these days? Whether it's, DJs that you are excited about or producers, artists. Who are you listening to these days? Fred again, John Summit, Ardalan, you. Aw, thanks, dude. Nikki Nair, yes, love Nikki. He's so sick. Joko, Mochak, Faulty DL, Roy Donk, let's go, dude. Bruno Furlan, awesome. Alex Perez. Hold on, I need to make sure more people can get in. Sick. AK Sports, yes, she is so dope. Codes and Omnom, that's awesome. Alyssa, Mary Droppins, yes. Sweet, this is so awesome. Night Funk, Eden, Black Loops, oh, he's sick. Yeti, dude, Yeti is so tight. Lawrence Guy, awesome. Scream, Interplanetary Criminal. I think they just did like some B2B stuff. It looked pretty sick. Fortet, the goat, Eats Everything. Pagan, yeah, Pagan's tight. DJ Boring, DJ Streaks. Only 200 BPM Donk. Yes. Oh, that's awesome. DJ ADHD. Danny Gallagher. Yes. The homie. This is awesome. Sweet. Thank you guys for sharing. The Donk only. Yes. Ivy Lab. Sick. Dope. Really, really dope. Awesome to get a sense of like what people are into out here. And once again, love the range, love the variety. All right. So let's dive in. My name's Justin, for those that don't know. And yeah, this is the third year in a row that done a little Thanksgiving Ableton sesh. And yeah, just doing this stuff is so much fun. Curious. Let me switch views so I can see more people. Can you electronically give a thumbs up like this if you have done this challenge before? Give me a thumbs up if you haven't, and don't worry if you have not. Awesome. Cool. This is sick. Handful, and now let's do this. Just curious, put your hands down if you haven't. Give me, by the way, if you don't know, at the bottom of the Zoom panel, there's like a reactions thing where you can do all sorts of different emojis. Can you give me a heart emoji if you have never used Ableton or made music before? If this is like literally the very first time that you're doing any of this stuff. Sick. Oh, yeah, huge respect. Let's go. A lot of hearts, honestly. That is so awesome. Cool. Really, really awesome to see. I feel like I've definitely had a fair share of homies who did this little workshop thing as like their jump off point into Ableton, and then fell in love with it and have made and released a bunch of music since. So and on the flip side, I feel like, if you're someone who's out here who's super experienced, I think there's so much value in what we're about to talk about, because I think there's times where when we really, I don't know, the more we learn, sometimes we fall into a trap of overcomplicating and getting overwhelmed with the infinite possibilities. And a big focus for me when it comes to making music is often keeping it simple and, most importantly, having fun. And I feel like one of the biggest things that gets in the way of having fun, maybe there's two things. One would be this issue of like overcomplicating, getting overwhelmed with like the complexities of making music and all the limitless possibilities. And I think the more simple things are and the less overwhelmed we are, I think the more that we can just have fun and express ourselves. And then I think another thing that is really, really important to keep an eye out for is perfectionism, being overly critical, and just grappling with self-judgment. I think those things, whether you're a beginner, first timer, or a veteran producer, we all grapple with those sorts of self-judgments, being overly critical, and yeah, it just ruins all the fun. And so I think that's a big focus. So if you're someone who's been producing for a while, I would say let's get you back into that beginner's mindset where we remove as much self-judgment, self-criticism as possible, and just focus on messing around, fucking around, as if we had no idea what we're doing. And I think that can often lead to some really fun results and a really enjoyable process. So yeah, give me a thumbs up if any of that resonates with you. Let's go. Awesome. Appreciate it, guys. Sick.
Hey, Justin,
What's up?
before you get rolling, we've got a cap at 100. We need to open it up for other people.
Okay, good to know. uh Sweet. Thank you for catching that. Let me figure this out. How do I uncap it? Meetings, preferences. Let's see. Definitely want to be able to let more people in. Large Zoom meetings. Okay, boom. Hold on one second, everybody. So thank you for catching that. Purchasing large, can't believe I didn't square this away. Okay, so purchasing large. Okay, and then now account management. Hold on, guys. I apologize for this delay, but I want to make sure people can get in. All right, sign in. This is super annoying. Here we go. Account management. Love this. Okay, boom. Making progress. Okay, billing. And here we go. Okay, so there we go. Zoom one. All right, now we're nearly there, guys. Scroll to interested in other add to current plans tab, scroll to interested in other available products. I'm so sorry, I'm wasting everyone's time with this. View details, hold on, where is the big Zoom thing? Okay, here's Zoom on one, large Zoom. Boom, I found it. Yes, let's go. Add to cart. We can get up to 1,000 people. And let's see, we'll do monthly, one time. Yeah. Okay. 500. Yeah, 500 participants should be fine. Okay, continue. Guys, thank you for bearing with me. It has been a full year since I've last done this, and boy, am I rusty. Okay, place, order, done. All right. And just want to give a heads up for anyone who has to run. Okay, this will be recorded, and just here, Megan, I'm going to make you the host to admit people, but I think we should be good to go. Yes, we're over 100 now. Fuck yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, people were messaging me, so thank you.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So yeah, and just to give people a little overview. So today I'm going to give out a challenge for everyone to do. You'll have just under 24 hours to do this challenge. And whatever you make, you can send it to me in a DM over Instagram. And then tomorrow, I'm going to play a couple people's songs. And, my hope is that some of my former students, we're going to, at the very end of tomorrow, do some little breakout rooms and try to give people the chance to share their songs in, small groups of like a dozen people or so. I'm not sure, I've never done this, but we'll give it a shot and see how it goes. But my hope is that by the end of this weekend, whether you are a beginner or someone who's more advanced, that you can end up with a little piece of music, whether it's even just, a short loop or a full song, depending on how far you get, and get the chance to share what you did with some other people. And I think in general, we were talking about perfectionism and stuff. I feel like sharing your music with others is such an important part of the process. Being able to, take that vulnerable step and show what you did to someone, even if it's a friend or, putting something up on SoundCloud. I just think so often there can be so much great music in the world that never gets heard by anyone because it can be so scary to take that step of sharing. So who's down to make some music and share what you do this weekend? Let's go. Awesome. Cool. That fires me up. And respect. It's a roller coaster, but I feel like on the other side of anything that you're afraid of doing, when you push through and exhibit some like courage, I feel like on the other side of all that fear can be such a deep, fulfilling satisfaction. And I'd recommend everyone just try and go for it. Awesome. All right. So let us move into actual music stuff. So as people who have done this before, I'm going to do another round of what I've called the 909 challenge. And if you don't know what the 909 is, here is how you do it. Megan, could you actually enable screen sharing so that I can share my screen? I made you the host and now I need your help.
You should be good.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, sick. All right. So I'm going to play a little video of Jeff Mills, who's a legendary DJ producer, who one of the godfathers of techno. And you're about to see him do a performance at a crazy huge music festival, Rave, from the 90s, I believe. And he's not playing a recorded song. He is literally just using one drum machine called the Roland TR-909 and is literally rocking the shit out of this crowd with just this one instrument. And I'll let it rip. Just one thing that I love, some of the cheering gets loudest when he just pauses the drums completely and then brings them all back. unreal. It's crazy. Like the crowd just freaking out, the energy, the drama right there. And as Christian said, yeah, those claps. It's insane to think about all of those thousands of people where they're dancing and he's just using one drum machine and doing it all live. That's not an easy thing to do. And it's just super impressive and musically really inspiring because it just shows how much you can do with one very limited piece of equipment. And what's crazy is when we open Ableton or any music software, there's so much that's possible. And yet, you know, you can do so much with so little. And you can do this exercise that we're about to do today, whether you have Ableton or not. All you need is the drum machine, the Roland 909, which most music programs have something kind of like it. And what's awesome is Ableton has the Roland 909 Kit Core -909. And so if you're brand new to Ableton, just heads up, I'm on Ableton 9. For some reason, I still have not upgraded, but just go to Kit Core on the left panel. If you go to drums and then open up the Kit Core 909, immediately we are now in the same league as Jeff Mills, whom you just were watching. And while the Roland 909, if you want to get the actual, drum machine, costs several $1,000s, here we have it completely included with Ableton. And here's the cool thing. Jeff Mills, he was rocking the shit out of that crowd by doing a lot of fancy stuff with the machine live. It's actually quite easy to do what he's doing by taking our time with Ableton and, being able to just essentially draw a bunch of dots on a grid. And so I'm going to show you really quickly how to do what Jeff Mills did. And then we can talk about how to actually make a song by doing stuff like this. So there's two different modes within Ableton. There is this mode, which is called Clip Launch. And this mode, if I click the tab button or move over here, which is the session view, and you can zoom in by clicking up here. And so let's just make a little drum loop with this 909. So I'm going to highlight one bar of music by clicking and dragging and going from a whole number to the next whole number. It doesn't matter where. I'll do 17 to 18. And if you're brand new to Ableton, all you do is Shift Command M to make this little square. And then to loop it, which we'll also do, we'll highlight the square and do Command L. So this, I feel like, is the absolute most technical part of what we're doing today. And if anyone is struggling, comment in the chat, and I'm sure there will be other Ableton pros who can help you get to this point. Once we do that, double click on this is called a clip. Double click on it to pull up this bottom panel, which is how we're going to edit the notes. And today, right click and choose 1/16 to get the grid that we will then use to make all of our patterns and rhythms. And yeah, if you're a pro, you're probably like, this is super basic. Yeah, the challenge here is to see if you can make an entire song, just like Jeff Mills, only using this instrument. So very, very difficult challenge for a pro. Thankfully, as a beginner, we do not need to get too caught up in the technical complexities of this program. So the main thing that we're going to focus on initially is placing drum sounds and rhythms, which is one of the most important skills when it comes to making music. A lot of people, excuse me, who are a little bit more proficient in making music, maybe focus on sound design and a lot of more advanced aspects. However, you can create the most amazing, fantastic, complex sound, but if you can't place it in a way, if you can't use it in your song, then it doesn't mean much. And so I feel like practicing some of these fundamental skills, like placing drum sounds and getting great rhythms, is so, so powerful. So for anyone who doesn't know, these 16 note, this grid represents all of the sort of like subdivisions within a measure of music. And so if you want to do house or techno, one of the most fundamental things is putting a kick drum on every beat. So that would be here on beat 1, then we skip 3 squares and go to the next sort of like big column, which would be 1.2, then to 1.3 and to 1.4. So here is a kick drum on every beat. And let's speed it up to some Jeff Mills techno. Let's do like 140. And now what's great, this is like so crucial even for the pro producers. If you think back about that video that we saw, one of the most powerful moments was when he just cut straight to the pick. I love the whoops and the cheers that happen, and he's literally just playing with the kick drum, nothing else. And so it's pretty funny because with all the limitless possibilities of like, you know, this program, sometimes just a 909 kick drum by itself can elicit some of the craziest reactions on the dance floor. So, and you know, if you're listening to this kick drum on headphones like I am, this is like what I'm making my music on these days. You know, it might just sound kind of like, you know, not that musically interesting, but when you're on a humongous sound system, the power of just this one kick drum by itself can be insane. Yeah, so that is one of the most important aspects of, yeah, just dance music is the kick drum. And for a lot of even more complex parts of dance music, like the mixing, you know, component, often the more simple our song is, the easier it is for this kick drum to be huge and just destroy the dance floor. One little note on Ableton, sometimes these 909 kick drum, 909 drum kits can be a bit different. The Ableton 9 drum kit is awesome. And just so that people have it, I will send it to everyone in the Zoom chat real quick so that anyone who wants to yeah, enjoy the same like kick drum that I use, I am going to link it right now in the chat. So please don't comment in the chat for a quick sec. That way you have this. Hold on, JJ909, copy Dropbox link. Boom, hold on. Here we go, copy Dropbox link. Okay, don't comment in the chat for a quick sec. That way people can grab it. So this 909, one of the advantages that it has is that it's a bit simpler. And I think it just has like really good features. So there you go. Now, anyone who doesn't have this, you can be on the same page as me. One quick note, there are 2 kick drums, the Kick B 909, which I feel like is a bit smaller sounding versus the one that's at the very bottom left, Kick 909, bottom left. That one's the one that I use versus Kick B. So by the way, for Ableton beginners to shift back and forth between this view of like the different drum sounds and the grid view, you just click Shift Tab, and now we're back here. So all that we're going to be focusing on, you know, is really just seeing what we can do with this grid. And there's literally infinite possibilities. For anyone who's done this exercise before, it's crazy to note that like for me, I've signed and released so many tracks where the 909 being my core instrument sort of like does the majority of the work. And here's sort of the reason why this is such a powerful tool. Like, let me just, you know, do some random stuff really quickly. If I even just indiscriminately put, you know, some like different blocks on this sort of grid, very quickly, it sounds like I have a $3,000 vintage drum machine. And so this is why it's such a powerful tool for both beginners and pros, is because, you know, often when you're someone who's more experienced, you might want to dig into a limitless number of sample packs and drum sounds that you've acquired, and it can often be a very time-consuming part of making music to find the perfect drum sound, the perfect kick, the perfect snare, etc., and finding these sounds that work with each other perfectly. When you use the 909, you bypass this risk of potentially choosing sounds that don't fit well with each other or sounds that don't work. All of these sounds are classic sounds that 100% work in dance music and 100% work with each other because we have grown up listening to songs that use this drum machine. So let's talk a little bit about more basic, building up a drum pattern like I just did. What are some of the things that we can do that really are like the most important? So by the way, if I didn't mention it, to add a drum sound, you just double click on any open space. You can double click again to get rid of it. You can also click the letter B on your keyboard to turn your cursor into a pencil tool, and then just single clicks. All right, so some more basic rhythms. So the kick drum on every beat is really important. I would say for house and techno, the second most important sort of drum rudiment to consider is the upbeat hi-hat. And so this would be the hi-hat that falls in between every single kick drum. So if we're looking at the grid, this would be 1.1.3. This is if we essentially do skip, skip, then a note, then a skip. If we turn this into an eighth note grid, essentially what we're doing is we're going to alternate between kicks and hi-hats. And so one of the things that we can do, go back to 16th, if we grab this hi-hat and drag our cursor to do 4 spaces, so that you see this neon blue line goes from 1.1.3 to 1.2.3. We can then click Command D and use that as a shortcut to then fill out the rest of the grid. So this right here, this up hi-hat is, I would say, the second most important aspect of making any sort of dance record for house and techno. And it gives us the classic unts, unts, unts feel. And look, people might hear them and be like, oh, that's not that remarkable. But what's so interesting about this upbeat hi-hat is I think it's very powerful for creating a hypnotic feel within our dance music, but also it by itself can be such an opportunity to essentially play with the energy of the track. Because I want to show you guys something. So listen to how it sounds on the closed hi-hat. And then I can move it up to the kind of like a medium hi-hat. And then I can move it up to the open hi-hat. And I can even move it up to the ride all the way at the top. And all of these permutations of where you place the open hi-hat can be insanely crucial tools to develop the energy of our songs. So I know there's a lot of people who try producing and they say they get stuck on just making one loop. Well, already, I just want to show you guys that we essentially can have 4 different loops. And I'll just show you this really quickly. So here, I'm going to put on each of these various positions of where this open hi-hat is. And let's also just do one where there is no open hi-hat. So let's listen. Very simple, very basic, but these are some of the most simple tools that we can use to essentially build out the energy of our song. And it's just one super basic aspect to the track that we're changing. Let's go back to this view. And let me talk about, I'd say, sort of, out of everything that you do within making music, I think there is an interesting balance point that we're trying to play with, especially when it comes to house and techno. Essentially, there are some fundamental aspects to these styles of music that we need to kind of abide by, which I would say is mainly just the kick drum on every beat. And then within that, we have so much room for creativity. And I think a lot of the fun of music can be about juggling these sort of creative restrictions with creative freedom and sort of, yeah, that dance between the two. And I think it's so important to recognize this because anyone who has ever opened the blank screen of Ableton and felt completely overwhelmed by the infinite possibilities, sometimes it can be really nice to be grounded by things that you can turn to and yet find the freedom within those restrictions. Hence this challenge of being restricted within the 909, but really being able to do anything. So if you want to do this challenge, you can make any style of music you want, but for the sake of this, I'm going to mainly talk about house and techno. All right, so let's talk about one more final kind of fundamental aspect of, making a great club song. And I would say this is pretty much the most important part of dance music. So essentially, we have our kick drum on every beat, like so. Make this a loop by doing Command L. And with a lot of club music, we have a kick drum that is sort of leading the charge of our music. It's kind of like the main pillar. And then often we will have a bass that fills in some of those spaces. And so what's great about the 909, and one of the reasons why it's such a powerful challenge, is because within this instrument, we have these toms that can essentially act as our bass line and be almost practice for writing bass lines, which is something that you wouldn't normally think about when you open a drum machine. You would normally think about drums being drums. But whenever you see these toms, I want you to think about them as, okay, I'm going to add some toms. This is going to be the bass line of this track. So let's add a couple toms. And so here's some things to note. So the lowest tom, which is this one, will give us the most satisfying bass sound. We can use these high ones, but if we exclusively use them, we're not going to end up with as satisfying of a bass line for this instrument. So if you want to add some toms to your track, I'd recommend adding at least one, maybe a couple low toms that will just add a little bit of that like low end energy. And so now let's talk about placement. So let's place a couple of these low toms. We will get the most bang for our buck currently by placing some of the toms in between the kick drums. Because if I just do this, so that doesn't sound bad by any means, but if I place it in between the kick drums, we're going to actually add to the rhythm of this pattern. So I'm going to place one right here. And what's great is this tom is now filling space between the kick drums. So let's just for the sake of it, let's add maybe one more pattern or one more note. And I added this on the up eighth note, or the space between the kick drum. I'm going to add one that's not on the kick drum, but maybe one of these other subdivisions. So let's do this one. And just to make this even easier, I'm going to do a 2-beat loop. And it's pretty awesome because already I feel like we have techno. I'm going to just duplicate this real quick, just to show you guys as a quick example. If I take this loop that we are now rocking down here, and now I just bring in the hi-hats. Already we have the basis for an awesome club track. Okay, so one other thing that I think is worth mentioning. So when trying to figure out what to do with these basic patterns, let's just do a 1-bar loop. I think whenever we place a sound, we have essentially each beat gives us 4 options. So we have with the kick drum on the downbeat. we have the upbeat, which would be with a hi-hat. And then we have these two other notes, which I would call the up 16ths. This would be here and here. And so I think a lot of funky rhythm can happen when you have some sort of interplay between these various positions. So if we just do the up eighth notes like this is a great rhythm, can be awesome. I feel like for the toms, it creates kind of like a do type of feel that is less funky. I think I like this pattern a lot for bass sounds, like if I had a synth bass or something like that. A lot of great club music just has this up eighth note pattern, but for this challenge, I think people will get a little bit more bang for your buck if you mix and match some of these various positions. So if I just take this and move this note one to the left or to the right, we'll start getting really funky patterns. If I move this note to the left, same thing. And pretty much any combination of these options will work. So I hope that's making sense to people. Give me a thumbs up if you're following thus far. Awesome. Okay, sweet. We can obviously expand this loop to a full 4 bars by just toggling this upper gray bar here. But yeah, I think, if you want to do something more techno-y, the more repetitive you go with like a 2-bar loop, I think the easier it can be. If you want to do something that's less repetitive, you can open it up. And let's try just adding some other rhythms here. And just to show, we can have a tom that falls with the kick if we'd like. This is what that would sound like. Totally works. And we can, so, I think starting with the low tom is not a bad spot, not a bad place to begin. And what we can do is we can experiment with adding some of the higher toms. If we add one, maybe this mid tom up here. Cool, that works. And we could, if we want to, we could move one of these toms to one of the other ones. If we wanted to, we could add even more. And at this point, what I'm going to start looking for is I'm going to look for where there is space in this pattern. Because this is pretty important to note. With these toms, you should avoid layering them on top of each other, like so. It sort of creates like a dissonant sound. It might sound fine on your headphones or your small speakers, but in the club, it will sound a bit muddy. So we'll get more bang for our buck by filling out the spaces. So maybe there's a space here. Let's try doing this high tom, which we haven't used yet. I don't really like that one, actually. Let's try this one. It's cool, but honestly, I think all things considered, there's so much space being filled up over here that I think giving the listener a little bit of a pause here is kind of nice. Cool. So this is super simple, but what we've done already is we've really nailed the foundation of our track. So any club record, whether it's electro, trance, drum and bass, the core elements that will drive our song are going to be this kick drum and the bass. I've made a lot of different styles of music, and every time that I am feeling unsure of whether the track works, one of the first things that I will do is double check that the kick is cutting through nicely and that the bass line is filling a sufficient amount of space in between those kick drums. And it's crazy because with this 909 challenge, if you start here, you are setting yourself up for success, and it's kind of like building a house on a very stable foundation. All right, so what I would think about this as, once you have your kick and your toms, this is sort of like your core loop. And on top of that, now all we need to really think about is how can we develop the various rhythms of the other drum sounds so that the energy can kind of go up and down. So I'm just to keep this simple, I'm gonna label this drum, this like 909. I'm gonna call it kick and toms. Cool, and then core loop, that's fine. So now I'm gonna make one more 909 by just going here, JJ 909, sick. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing, click, highlight, shift, command M to make another clip. And so one of my favorite things, this is like another huge thing about why this challenge can be so good for pros. I feel like a really powerful aspect for making a musical idea is when you can see all of the things that are happening in your track at the same time visually, because this will help us essentially, keep track of what's happening. So let's just start with this closed hi-hat on every upbeat. Cool, awesome. So obviously there's like so many different permutations for things we can do with the hi-hats. Let's come back to them and do some stuff with the claps, snare, and rim. So beyond the drums, I think we kind of touched upon some of the possibilities for the hats. I'd say the part of music that we haven't really talked about is what I would call the mid-range. And the mid-range is the part of music that, essentially our ears are the most adapted to listen for. These would be instruments like the human voice, guitars, pianos, anything that falls into that band of frequency, which does not include the subs, which are like low and bassy, or the hi-hats would be those like high frequencies. So what's interesting about the mids is on the 909 is just as we thought about the toms as our baseline, we can think about the rims, snares, and claps as our mid-range elements that will be pretty crucial for holding the listener's attention. So I would say the kick and bass, it sort of drives the propulsion of the track and is what people dance to. It's maybe something that people feel in like their feet and like in their like lower body, keeps them moving. Whereas the mid-range, these claps, snares, and rims are what might keep the interest in the song so that we don't feel like it gets boring. And I think like a funny example is like, if you're outside of a club and you just hear the rumbling of the kick and bass, oomph, 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 it might sound intense, but it would get very annoying to listen to for like 5 hours if you couldn't hear any of the other frequencies. So I'm just going to, let's fuck around with this. For these claps, I'm just going to start drawing some random stuff and just see how it goes. I'm going to avoid putting the clap on beat 1, but for techno, we can pretty much put it anywhere else besides this first downbeat, and it will sound like techno just immediately. Okay, cool. So one fun thing that I'm, noticing, I have like a nice sort of interplay with the toms where a lot of them line up, but not every single one. It looks like this kick and tom, there's no clap. I feel like there's some just nice kind of synergy between these instruments. And I think I have a pretty busy tom pattern. And so I think these claps also being busy, if they were too, I feel like they could be too hectic if they never played with the tom. So this is like, an example of them like always playing off. It's okay, but I think this is stronger because there's synergy between these two instruments. And yeah, even though there's a lot of notes, there is some really awesome spaces. There's nothing happening here. And I think that in itself provides a nice reprieve from the hectic rhythms of the other part of this measure. So that's just like another thing that I'm kind of keeping an eye out on as I add more stuff. So, I've taken up a lot of space with these claps. That might actually also be an issue. So maybe to add some variety, maybe I can just move some of these claps to the rim shot and see how this feels. Okay, cool. So let's just start there. I think that's totally fine. And I think if you're a pro, I mean, honestly, pro or beginner, I think if you're doing this challenge for the first time, try to give as little fucks as possible and just move through this as quickly as possible. I'm obviously going a bit slower, but the more that we can just stop second guessing and just keep on powering through to the other phases of making a song, the better. So here are like, I'm just gonna call this the mid-range. And I'm gonna make one last 909. And this will be like, so these will be mids and these will be hats. So highlight, Shift Command N. And so obviously, like I mentioned before, we have the up hats, which could be closed, medium, open, and the ride. I'm going to show some other options that we can explore. So one thing that's really satisfying with this 909 is we can get some pretty fun things if we cycle between the open hats and the closed hats. This is like a pretty classic hi-hat rhythm where we do closed, closed, open, closed, closed, open, etc. That already works. If we wanted to, we could, try mixing it up a little bit. And yeah, so just for anyone who got lost there, we just have an open hi-hat on every beat, and we're playing around with how we fill that space with some of these closed hats. We could also do the same thing with the medium hat, this one. And we can also do things where we maybe have a combination of some closed, some open, some medium. Cool. Awesome. So, all right, now let's talk. I mean, it's crazy already. Just want to pause. This is, as a drum beat and as a song, this would totally crush it on the dance floor. Like as a loop, just that kick tom pattern, that by itself right here would totally make people dance on the dance floor. This right here. Adding hats. Adding more mid-range elements. These three categories of sounds, all which are contained within the 909, can give us essentially all the elements that we need to make a full song, which Jeff Mills is showing us based on what he's doing live at that music festival. So now the issue becomes like, well, how do we turn this loop into a full song? So essentially, when we are making a song, there's, at any given point, there's three options. We can add a new sound, we can take an existing sound away, or essentially do nothing. Maybe I guess like a third thing that's actually doing something is we could, instead of removing or adding something, we could change something that's there, which we will talk about. But let's keep it even more simple for now, and just talk about how sounds can be added or removed and how that can be really satisfying. So, real quick, if I just, let's assume we're starting off the track and we have this. We can just add the hats over here. Sorry, being a little slow. Hats come in here. And then maybe over here come the claps. And so within house and techno, a good sort of unit of measurement for time is either the 4-bar or 8-bar phrase. So right now, because this track is pretty simple, I'm trying to develop things kind of faster. So every 4 bars from 17 to 21, I added a new element. Then 21 to 25, I added another new element. So that's kind of how we're developing the songs, just by adding these various sounds every 4 bars. All right, let's keep it going. Whoops. So we have the hats, then we have the claps. Okay, and so now let's talk about some of the other ways that we can keep the song evolving. And this, I think, is something that a lot of people often forget. We can be so fixated on adding that we forget the power of taking away. So what if I take away the kick drum, which if anyone's ever been on a dance floor, when the kick drum goes away, it immediately creates such a moment of suspense. So let's do that. And then maybe 4 bars later, I'm going to take out the toms. So essentially what we're doing is I'm pulling the rug out from the dance floor. By taking out the kick and the toms, it downshifts the energy or creates a moment of tension, a moment of suspense. Okay, so that's happening. Just I feel like what I'm feeling kind of intuitively is I want even more things to come away kind of quickly. So let's strip away even more elements. So I'm going to take out the kick drum, the toms after 2 measures, and then I'm going to take out the hats for this final measure so that we just have these mids playing by themselves. Let's listen to this. Kick comes out here. Cool. So what's awesome, kind of like I tried to highlight in that Jeff Mills video, when he takes out the, when he pretty much cuts all of the music, that's when people cheer the loudest. And it's one of the most powerful tools that we have as producers to build the tension. You literally just stop as much stuff as you possibly can, even complete silence. And you can use that to really create some intense, powerful moments. So now that we have this like moment of silence, let's bring all the elements back to kind of sort of have a contrasting moment. And maybe now let's up the energy and figure out if there's anything we can add. So I think maybe one of the more intense sounds that can kind of like add to the energy of the track is the ride cymbal. There's like one very basic pattern that just like always works, and that'd be the up ride that just matches on top of the hi-hat. That's like super intense. Another really great tool that we have for the ride cymbal is to have it on every beat. And here's something that's a little bit more sophisticated, but can go a really long way. I'm going to solo the ride so we can just hear it by itself. This is like a classic techno feel. If you grab every other ride, starting with the first one, click, 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 and bring this bar down, which adjusts what's called the velocity, essentially how hard the note is being hit, how loud it is. And what we did is we made all the first, third, fifth, seventh toms, ride cymbals quieter, and this will create like a pumping feeling. Anyone who's like more advanced, this is kind of like side chaining the ride to the kick, but doing it without the advanced technique. And this gives like a very pumping, driving feeling with everything. So that's something we can do. I'm gonna save that for later. And right now, let's choose something that's a little bit more intricate of a pattern. And to add a more intricate pattern, I'm just gonna zoom in. That way I can just look at all these dots and just, kind of keep track of where different elements are as I add stuff. So I'm just going to kind of randomly do some shit and then see how it feels. I'm trying to just keep it looking, I don't know. I'm trying to avoid things that are overly repetitive for this pattern thus far. It's close, maybe a little too hectic here. I don't mind that. And maybe kind of in the spirit of that first example, I'm going to take these ride cymbals that are on the downbeats that fall with the kick drum. 1, 1.2, 1.4. I'm going to lower them just to create a little bit of that pumping feeling. I actually like this one being kind of louder. Cool. So that is just, and if we take a step back and listen to this section, now what's really awesome is we have this sort of pause moment where I've taken out the kick drum. Here, I'll label this no kick. We pause the hi-hats over here. So we have kind of this like breakdown moment. And then when it comes in, I'm going to label this ride. And now we can see that just by adding this new element, we have a pretty impactful moment. Let's listen. And if we wanted to, one thing we could do to like accentuate this moment even more is add a couple extra sounds right before the drop to help build this energy. So maybe I added some extra claps, layered them with a snare, and maybe, you know, just a little bit of this. Maybe I'll move these rims to the clap just to make it a little bit different and a little bit more of a moment. It's close. Maybe just take this away. I just want to fine tune it a little bit. No, I don't like that. Maybe take this away, that we just have this 4 claps at the very end. See if that feels better. It's a little too hectic. I think maybe even just that, even simpler. I think that's better, and we can come back to this. So I don't want to get too fixated, but I think these types of little moments, I'll label this fill. It's like a drum fill right before the drop. These are kind of like, yeah, some of the aspects of the song that are worth dialing in. All right, so let's keep on chugging. So one of the final things that we really haven't talked about that is a huge key for success for Jeff Mill is what's called automation. And that would be adjusting existing sounds. So we're no longer talking about taking things away or adding new things, but rather changing things that are already there. So one of the best things to mess with is what's called the decay of the ride, which would be sort of how long it is. Let's listen to the ride by itself and listen to me adjust this one decay knob, and you can hear how the ride changes. So this is one of the most powerful things that we can tweak, how long a sound is. Sounds going from really short to really long is an insanely powerful tool. And so if you're using Ableton 10 or 11, you need to click the letter A on your DAW to enable the automation. Once you do, click the knob that you want to automate, and you should see a dashed red line. When you begin clicking on it, it'll turn to solid, and this is how you will be able to change a setting as the song advances. Cool. So one thing that we can do, we can sort of experiment like with this knob. Where does it sound good at the lowest setting and the highest setting? So here's the highest. So yeah, it definitely works all the way at the top, and then let's figure out where it works at the lowest. All right, so that is definitely too low for my taste. Still too low. Getting there. Cool. All right, so now I figured out that around 70 milliseconds is kind of the lowest setting that it sounds good at. And what's awesome is now that I've taken the time to figure that out, I now know that for this song, I can play with everything from 70 milliseconds to 10 seconds. And this whole range of sort of decay time will sound awesome. So I could even do something like this if I wanted to. And now obviously maybe it's like all the way, by the time it gets here, it sounds pretty much all the way open. So that's kind of worth noting as well. But what's cool is now I can use this feature to sort of play with the song, and I can kind of do anything I'd like. I could draw something a little bit chaotic. Let's hear how this sounds. Cool. I think that's fine, but I don't want it to come down so early. I feel like I still want the energy of this track to keep on building. And maybe one last thing that I could do, maybe for this 4 bars, I can go back to adding something. Maybe I'll add the claps here and maybe one extra clap here to just, I want people to feel like the intensity of this track is still building. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else interesting that I could do. Maybe, maybe I'll put this clap on the downbeat because that for this part could be kind of nice. Oh, I'm gonna put a clap on every downbeat. That's like a very fun techno thing to do, and it'll make it feel very intense. And then I'm gonna take the kick out for just 2 bars, see how that feels over here, and really sort of like build the intensity, maybe like even adding some extra snares, just kind of randomly. Let's see how this does. And then here I've been adding a lot of stuff, so maybe I could have a moment of pause. Like I'm just gonna cut everything and go fucking crazy by just like adding a ton of shit. Maybe like even some like smaller notes that'll just be like extra hectic. Cool. And then something different can happen here. But this is like where when people feel like, what am I supposed to do in a track to keep it interesting? At this point, I hope that you can see these are the basic tools: adding elements, taking elements away, or changing existing sounds. And so I'm going to give myself a couple more minutes to see how far I can get with using these basic principles to kind of make a full song. So let's see. Okay, so now an important part of, as you advance further and further into your track, some overarching principles that we really want to think about. I'd say the biggest is contrast. So we've had a lot of hectic rhythms right here. So maybe we need a moment of simplification. So one of the things that I'm going to do, we've had this open hi-hat for a while. Maybe I'm going to bring all of it down to close and cut the ride cymbal. Let's go back to this, and maybe we can even simplify this pattern a little bit. Maybe just taking out, a couple of the claps. Let's see how this feels. You know what? I think here I'm craving like maybe to kind of contrast that, maybe we'll have like a really fast hi-hat. And what's cool is even though this is busier, I think it's because it's just all the hi-hats, I think there's like a nice satisfaction between all of this chaotic sort of like, kind of bouncy rhythms where there's a lot of like things off and on, and then just kind of a steady feeling. Okay, and then this is something fun. So like, I can do like a little dropout where I just cut a bunch of sounds for a short thing. Because I'm hearing like, we've had this like consistent thing. I'm gonna like cut a bunch of the sounds right here and I added a couple extra toms to make this a little moment. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this. So here, check out this little moment. Okay, that doesn't sound good yet. Let me do, nope. Okay, I don't like these toms yet. Maybe this, maybe just, okay, maybe instead of the toms, let's just grab these claps from the drum fill. See how this feels. Cool. Yeah, I think that's going to be a little bit easier to kind of latch onto. Now I'm going to highlight this, and we're going to talk about one of the most important hotkeys for extending your song. There's two, but the first one we'll talk about is Command D, where you highlight the elements that you want to copy and just copy them like so. And now to up the energy, I'm going to do that trick that we talked about earlier, or maybe I'm going to take the up hi-hats, the ones that are in between the kick drums, and move them from the medium one to the open one. So let's just hear how that one change is going to help up the intensity of this track. And maybe here we start reintroducing the ride cymbals. Let's do that like this. And maybe what we can do is if I do the plus sign, I can copy some of this automation if I'd like to. I'm going to bring it down to 70, where I know that it's kind of like the most, it's like the shortest that sound can be and work. And now I'm gonna just take elements from earlier. And what's awesome is like you can hear it already that just by kind of recycling some of these ideas that have already taken place, I'm building the energy up. Okay, cool. So now let's look at how much music we have. We have about a minute of music. It's an awesome start. So one of my other favorite things to do to sort of like get more mileage out of our track is to copy really large sections of the song. So I'm thinking about it like this. You know, maybe this is like another moment where elements are getting more and more intricate. I want to keep that going for a bit longer. Oh, you know, maybe one thing that could be kind of fun is to just have a moment where we play with the ride cymbal by itself. Cool. So, something like that kind of feels cool. So check this out. This could be kind of cool. So what I can do, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this whole section. Let's see, yeah, and do Shift Command D, and this will duplicate the entire track. And so now what I can do is I've doubled the length of my song, but now I can sort of try to think about how can I change little aspects here and there to make the song feel like it's still changing or evolving. So I did that automation with the ride cymbal. I'm just going to put that here. So now, even though I've copied the entire song structure, I have created a new moment by just changing this section. I'm going to duplicate this. All right, and so now I like this part. I'm going to make this a bit longer. Let's try this. And here's a fun little trick. So what I could do is, now that I'm at this section, maybe now, instead of going back to this straight hi-hat thing, well, you know what, actually, should I do that again? I'm not sure. I could create another new moment by just doing the same thing with the claps on every beat, which I haven't done yet by itself. And maybe, you know, I've had a lot of drum elements. Maybe I just mute the hats entirely. Cool. And then maybe I'll take the fill again that we've been using a bunch over here. Okay. And maybe let's just keep this going and let's have like a really simple section where I just play with some of the, you know, kind of just the power of messing with just the hi-hats that we use. So let's try that. And I think I have them over here. Okay, cool. And you know, one fun thing that we can do, instead of doing the closed hi-hat, check this out. Let's do the open hi-hat here. Oh, whoops, I don't think I moved it. Here we go. Move this up to the open hi-hat. And let's do one more automation move on the open hi-hat. And this is like going to be a great way to build the energy across this section. So let me figure out how low it can be. Cool. Maybe I'll bend it by doing Option, and then I can bend this curve so that it stays closed for a longer period of time. I got the kick here. Awesome, sweet. So let's listen to this moment. maybe it could be nice to have just like a little variation there. So just double that that clap. Maybe I'm hearing like I just want more claps to just keep it interesting. I feel like there needs to be a clap there, and then that should. And maybe here I'll do this, but maybe also, maybe I can just add like a rim shot here and there to just keep the energy building a little bit. Oh shit, I didn't copy these properly. Hold on, boom. Okay. And I still think the more like little dropouts, probably the better. Okay, cool. So now let's see how long our song is now. We are now at 1 minute 56 seconds. So we're almost to the length of a full track. And now when you get to this point, you might need to think about, what have you not done in your song yet? For me in this track, one thing I'm realizing is I haven't had a moment where the kick drum plays by itself. So that's something I'm kind of thinking about. Let me take the whole song, duplicate the whole thing again. And I'm going to just label this like no toms. That way I have like, because obviously this thing's getting pretty long and I want to just stay organized somehow. So this is going to be the first moment in the entire track where the toms are out, but the kick is in. And so I think to execute this section, which I think could be kind of tricky, maybe something I could do just for fun is maybe I'll do a non-4 to the floor kick pattern. Which I think kind of that'll make it a little bit interesting. And this will be kind of like, this is not like sort of an arrival point, but I think more of like a tension building section. Check out the rides. Okay, cool. Perfect. And then one thing that I realized we never ended up doing is we never had a section where the rides do kind of like the simple pumping thing, which maybe that can happen now. So here, let's do that. And so I'm just trying to explore, at this point, like, what have I not done? What are the combinations of things that haven't happened yet? And try to leverage those as much as possible. So and maybe just to make this section a little different, I'll add one extra tom note, see if that feels okay. This note works rhythmically. It's getting a bit hectic. Try this one. Try making this note shorter. You know what? I'm going to try changing this pattern a little bit for this section. Oh, okay. Here's one last idea. Maybe instead of that, here's the original pattern. Maybe I can just try shortening this loop or choosing an alternate loop. It's okay. I'm not happy with that. Let's try this. Not really happy with that either. Let me think about what I can do. So, because I think this is kind of like the home stretch of the track. Pretty much, I feel like I want one last sort of moment before, I want one last new thing to happen, and then let's just loop it back to kind of the beginning, and then we're home free. So let's listen from here. What does the song want? Okay, I have a funny idea. So maybe I could take this kick pattern and maybe I can use this rhythm on some other sounds to kind of build a little bit of like, sort of create a buildup. So let me try putting it on an open hi-hat. Okay, that's overlaying with some of the existing hi-hats. Let me do maybe ride. Okay, I think this idea is kind of cool. It's like, I'm a big fan of recycling various elements, like sort of rhythms, and using them like kind of as a team. All right, so let's see what we can do. So this is going to be kind of like a build-up section. And I want to use this idea, this pattern, the thing with as many different sounds as I can. Okay, cool. So I have another fun idea for something we can do. I put the ride here. Maybe we can play with the pitch of it. So maybe it'll start high. And then maybe we can have it play again, but this time go from low to high. Cool. And take out the kick here. So let's see how this is feeling. Cool. And I think for this final moment, even just experimenting with like how simple we can make the track could be a satisfying way to kind of build more tension. So I want to think when I'm dealing with these kind of moments, which I would call this like a buildup, and let's say this is going to be the drop, I'm very much thinking about, which direction is the flow of energy? Are we like going up and adding more elements to create a more chaotic tension building moment, or the opposite where we're trying to strip things away and create suspense by having less elements? So let's see what this song wants at this point. Okay, so I feel like we want to keep on maybe being a little bit slower with how elements fade away. Okay, sweet. What I did just now is I layered the crash with it. And I have the decay time. Oh, I actually didn't do that properly. I want to experiment with the decay time of this crash, starting short and getting longer. Okay, cool. I think that's kind of nice. Here's that with everything else. Let's see. And I think that kind of works. And then we could probably just drop in after that. Okay, cool. And then maybe just to add some extra intensity, we can copy back some of the more busy mid-range patterns. Maybe here. Awesome. I'm gonna cut this section. And now we're on the home stretch. Now we're just gonna do a little outro. Awesome. And I think we have a song. Let's see how long it is. It is 3 minutes, 15 seconds. And I know was trying to just go quickly, but I think this is sort of, not a bad sort of way to kind of like expand upon a song. What we did was we, sort of took our time patiently introducing some of the various elements at the beginning. I would call this like an intro. And then over here, I would call this like our first drop. And what we did was we spent a good amount of time, adding elements, changing things, adding some automation, kind of creating some different moments. And kind of, we pretty much went until here, I believe, which is like about, a little over 30 seconds. And then started copying, I think I copied this entire section, which you can kind of see sort of the artifacts of that. And then I copied a smaller chunk, then changed a thing or two to make it feel different. Then essentially what I started doing was copying that entire chunk and repeating the process of then going back and changing little things, which gives the illusion that I've created this whole song with all these unique moments. But really it's like copying and changing one or two little things, which helps make it feel a little bit more, I don't know, just helps strike a balance of developing the idea without writing a brand new song, which I think is another pitfall for a lot of experienced and beginner producers, where you might start an idea and feel like you need to add a brand new element or melody, and then another brand new element or melody. And before you know it, you've written 5 or 6 songs in one song, when really you could take just one of those ideas and stretch it out into a full piece if you'd really focused on, sort of, maybe it's, a matter of playing with the combinations of the different sounds. Oh, I haven't had the kick without the toms. Maybe I'm just going to try that and remove some elements for the very first time. Or maybe it's about tweaking a sound that's already there. I think when it comes to rhythms and drums, I think the 909 challenge is so useful, because as veteran producers, it's sort of this opportunity to like really push the envelope to what you can do just with your drums and with your rhythms, and making sure that you're achieving contrast, development, tension, and release with those sounds. So that is the 909 challenge. That's a little demonstration for me. I think maybe just real quick, I'm going to show you how I would master this. My mastering process is super janky, but it does work. Pretty much what I'm just going to do is put a limiter on the master. This is so janky. And I'm going to go to a very busy section of my song where the kick, toms, other elements are in. And I'm going to push this gain up until I'm seeing somewhere between -6 and -12 decibels of gain reduction. So if you don't know what that is, just move this bar until it's hitting somewhere between 6 and 12. And so I think one other element that I just want to tweak a touch. I think in terms of the mixing, generally this drum kit is pretty well mixed, but I think I'm gonna make the kick a little bit louder just so it pops through the mix a bit more. Cool. So if you do this challenge, you're welcome to add more sounds if you'd like to, but I think the less things you add, the more challenging it is in many ways. So for pros, I would say like, see how little you can add. And if you're a beginner, it's awesome because just try to have fun with these sounds. Try to see what combinations of rhythms and patterns make you want to dance, and how can you get that contrast between maybe a very busy pattern and then it becoming very simple. I think the key though, the most important thing, if you do this challenge, is to start with the kick and the toms and make sure that those two elements by themselves make you want to dance. If those two elements have that groove and that bounce, then everything you add on top is like icing on the cake. But if those elements are not making you dance by themselves, that's where you need to turn your attention to. So that is everything I wanted to discuss. I think the in terms of this challenge, please send me what you do in an Instagram DM, either as a SoundCloud upload or like a Dropbox link, something where I can just stream the audio super easily. And please send it to me as early as you can, but at the very latest by 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I will try to listen to as many as I can. Obviously, there's a lot of you, but for those that also were wondering, this recording or this Zoom is being recorded and we'll get it uploaded and sent out to email for anyone who wants to rewatch. For people who are absolute beginners, message me on Instagram if there's any specific Ableton questions that you're having, and I'll try to do some, I think I'll probably do like a post where like a question post where you can just like ask the questions into that post. That way I can make some stories to go over some like basic things that maybe I glanced over in this hour and a half. So I think that is everything that I wanted to do. Yeah, really excited to hear what you guys make. Yeah, and just give no fucks. That's the most important thing. Feel free to make something that you think is shitty. Feel free to make something that you think is dumb or boring or whatever. I think that is actually a really important part of this challenge, is to relinquish control over your own music and allow the song to be what it wants. I think that applies both in terms of, how good you want the song to be. Like, oh, I really want to make the best 909 beat ever. It's like, it's not about that. It's about doing something within the time crunch that I'm giving you, letting go of that perfectionism. And I think another valuable lesson to take away from this is often I think producers can fall into a trap of having a pre-established vision for your music. Oh, I really want it to sound this way and be this thing. When in actuality, I think so many great songs essentially take a life of their own, and we cannot decide what the song wants to be. We have to let the song be what it wants to be, as if we were raising a child. I think my favorite example is like, you have a kid and you're like, I want you to play football, but your kid wants to do ballet. It's like, you got to just let your kid do ballet, and then maybe it'll be a even better football player. It's like, you can't force your song to be something that it doesn't want to be. And the more that we can step into a place of allowing the song to come into its own existence, how it wants to be, the better. And I think the more enjoyable. So hope that helps. I'm down to kind of stick around for a little bit longer to answer any specific questions. Ideally, if there's any beginners, I'd love to like answer super basic questions like, where is the play button or whatever, just to help beginners. But and if you ask me a question that I think is a little too advanced for the Zoom, I'll try and answer it later on Instagram. But if you are ready to go and start your 909 challenge, get out of here, have fun, and I will catch you tomorrow. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to listen to some of the things that people make, and we'll have more time for questions tomorrow as well. But make some music, have fun. That's the number one goal here. Just for me, making music is like the most fun thing in the world to me. Really, it's just like playing a video game, but when you finish, you end up with something you can listen to later and dance to, and maybe other people will dance to it. It's just so awesome. And I hope that everyone has fun this weekend. So thank you guys so much. And now I'm down to take some questions if you have any, and farewell to those that are ready to embark on their challenges. All right, some questions coming in, and yeah, feel free to just drop them in the chat. Get some water. All right, what is a JJ909? I feel so crazy asking what I tuned into late-ish. Great question. So on Ableton, I'm using an old version of Ableton. My version of Ableton has a 909 that I think is more simple, has less knobs, and I think just gets the job done without the extra features. And so I called it the JJ909. And it's for anyone who's on a newer version of Ableton to just have the simpler drum machine. Keep it going. Matt, is the challenge just to do drums? Are we cheating if we add instruments? What do we want to hear by tomorrow at 11? Great question. So the challenge is to use just the 909 for your drums. You can add other elements, but I would say the fewer elements you add, I think the more of a challenge it becomes and the more you will fine tune your skills. So I think if you're going to add an extra sound, I would recommend maybe just add a vocal or something like that. That's like a really good go-to sound. And maybe we can talk about that tomorrow. But even just seeing how far you can get with just the 909, if you're up for that level of difficulty. And so that is the irony, is it's such a it is such a funny, it is a very like equalizing challenge, because I think for both beginners, it works great because you just can focus on this one instrument. And for pros, it's like, fuck, I can't use all the plugins and sounds that I'm used to relying on. Oh no. And so I think that is why it's worth giving a try. Even if you've done it before, it's just like, it's like going to the gym and doing like calisthenics or like basic things, you know, like it just, I don't know that much about exercise, TBH, but it's like that I think is the spirit of it. Jordan, how you doing, dude? I see your hand is raised. What is up?
No, it's good, bro. I just wanted to like chime in about the challenge and like kind of limiting yourself, but like, you know, just going with the 909 drums. Like limit yourself to like maybe one synth, one vocal, like, you know, two extra elements really to just like kind of keep it dumbed down, like see what you can do with that so you don't overwhelm yourself.
Jordan, I love you. I honestly, dude, because Jordan and I, we've worked with each other before. He's the man, makes awesome music. Go check out Fumes. Jordan, I feel like even for you, dude, the more you can try just using the 909, it's actually hard. It's,
Yeah.
I think, harder than using more sounds. And that is why it is such a challenge. And like, yo, man, the proof is in the pudding with Jeff Mills, the GOAT, the legend, rocking the shit. And he has so many videos of online of him rocking crowds at the 909. It's like, it's so crazy because you can keep on doing this challenge over and over again, create different ideas, and consistently make tracks. It's like the skill development that you get is just insane, and then directly translates to when you actually reintroduce elements. And
Right.
yeah, like, yeah, if you want to use a vocal, if you want to add another sound, you are welcome to, but the more of it, it's just important to acknowledge, the less you use, the more challenging it is. And just a funny example, the first year I did this, I did use a vocal. I did a Fergalicious vocal, where it's literally just the 909 and one vocal. And Patrick Topping hit me up being like, yo, I love this track. Can you send it to me? And it was like a little homework assignment that I made for this class. So just a testament to how powerful these sounds are. And we needn't look further than Jeff Mills for like undeniable proof that you do not need more. Yeah, if you want to add more, you can, but you do not need to add anything else to make an absolute banger.
Yeah.
Do you feel me on that?
Yeah, because if you think about it, like all those like classics, you know, they didn't have all the cool, like intricate, like you know, tools that we have, you know, with modern DAWs. Like, you know, they had, you know, just recorded audio and they just slapped that shit together on a tape and
Exactly,
you know,
dude.
called it good.
100%. Fuck yeah. Dude, Jordan, thank you for your question and great to see you, my guy.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna
Likewise.
keep it going. Fuck yeah. All right. Let's see. Okay, someone asked, do I typically leave all your channels at 0 dB? That is a great question. For the stock Ableton 909, one of the advantages of using this pre-made drum kit is there is already a pretty decent balance in the mix between these elements. And therefore, I was able to skip the mixing process kind of entirely, with the exception of maybe I wanted the kick drum a little bit louder at the end. So, you know, that's like another great thing, is we can focus more on the composition and the writing of the song as opposed to technical aspects related to the mix. However, if I was mixing a song with more elements, I would be adjusting volume faders. All right, hope that makes sense. Let me keep on reading questions. What's the button combo to just extend your 1 bar clip to like 8 bars by dragging? Okay, so that's a really good question. On Ableton 10 and 11, it does look a little bit different, but what you have to look for is when you are looking at the MIDI clip view, look for a button that's called loop and make sure it is toggled on. It should be yellow. This panel will look different, but this is the panel that allows you to then stretch this loop out and have it repeat over and over again. Let me go back to questions. All right. Should new components come in starting on the 4th bar or starting on the 5th bar? Great question. Brendan, stoked you're here, my guy. So yes, it's a little funny. It is actually the 5th bar that new things should come in, because what you want to do is count by units of 4. So if we look at these by measures, check this out. 1, 2, 3, 4. It is the beginning of the 5th measure that something new would happen. If we do this again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Measure 9 is where something new would happen. And Ableton helps aid you in this quest by sort of having different colored columns when you zoom in sort of appropriately. Everything that we hear tends to be in a multiple of 4 for the most part. And so that is how you do it. Very good question. All right, Victor. Oh, yeah, okay. Came a little late. Did you drop a sample pack for this challenge? I'm just using the stock Ableton 909 from an old version of Ableton. You can use the existing version of the 909 that you have. I sent it a while back. Let me just, boom, I just sent it. I'm just sending it again in the chat now. That is my 909. And I'll send it out over email for anyone who misses that link. And I see, how do you import the JJ909? You can drag it straight from your downloads into the Ableton project. Let me show an example of that. So here's my Ableton project. Let me just download it for the example. Hold on, boom. Let me share my screen. I realize I'm not doing that. So, excuse me, download. Boom, done downloading, takes 2 seconds. And if I grab it from my downloads just into the project, boom, there it is. Easy peasy. Let's keep it chugging. I might have lost place a little bit. Apologies if I skipped your question. All right, here, let me see if I can get, okay. Okay, so people are answering questions. That's awesome. Good looking up. Looking for more questions. Okay, stylistically, would you prefer our track stay in the realm of techno and house music at a certain BPM? Absolutely not. Do whatever you want on this challenge. Make whatever crazy music you want to make. Have fun with it. It's like there's no right or wrong here. And I've definitely heard some super interesting interpretations of this challenge. I would say, if you are a producer who has been stuck in a rut, let's say you're not finishing tracks, let's say you're not having fun making music, I think the more straightforward you go on this, the less plugins you use, the more value you will get as a pro. That's like kind of the irony here. It's like, let's say you're a veteran artist who's been making music for like 10 years. Yeah, I think the first time I did this challenge, I was like in year 9 of like releasing and producing music. And I was like, damn, this is actually fucking hard. So it's like, it is actually a challenge. So the name of the game for me, for you guys this weekend, is having fun. So whatever will enable that. And if you try and you're like, I'm going to make the most intricate IDM, experimental sound design track with these sounds, and then you are having no fun and you don't end up making anything. If you have 30 minutes before class tomorrow, just try a straightforward techno track or house track with these drums, and it might make a big difference. Okay, how did you initiate automation on the hats track? So the key for automation, first, you need to click the letter A on Ableton to enable automation. And one thing that's important to note, to do that, make sure that this keyboard logo is turned off. If this keyboard logo is turned on, pressing A will essentially turn your keyboard into like a piano, and we do not want the piano on. We want the piano off, so that way when you press A, it turns automation on. Once that is done, open up the instrument panel. If it's closed, click Shift Tab to open it, and find the parameter or the knob that you want to change. When you do that, the automation line will appear. So here I'm going to click hi-hat. All right, let's do glue. You can see hi-hat glue. Let's do snare decay. Snare decay. It just snaps automatically once you click the parameter you want to change. I would also say in general, you can see in my example that I tweaked very few automation parameters, and that the majority of what I was doing had to do with rhythm and placing drum sounds. That is another thing for both beginners and pros to focus on, because it can be a little bit confusing when you have a lot of automation things happening, and maybe you're tweaking automation parameter, maybe you're automating parameters that are not actually having a big impact on the overall feel of your song. And so we can kind of skip that issue entirely by focusing on more so rhythms, drum sounds, etc. I would recommend starting with some of the parameters that I showed, ride automation, open hi-hat, decay automation being two really good ones. Okay, hope that answered that question. And if, keep on, feel free to add more. I'll see how many I can get through. Do we use effects? Yes or no? Up to you. Once again, the more simple you do this challenge, the more difficult it will be. And I think the more you will learn from it. So use as few effects as you possibly can. If you feel like you want to, you're welcome to, but it is not even using one plugin is really hard. And that's the real challenge here. All right. So yeah, the only plugin I used was a limiter on the master. No fancy shit whatsoever. Can someone repost the first kick Justin shared? I was driving, couldn't grab it. Yeah, so that'll also be out on email. Thanks, Mark. Good looking out, Mark, for saving the day. Connor, freeze. Oh, okay, people are answering questions. Isaiah, how do we pull up the small menu with the decay attack for the individual kick components? The menu used while automating. Got it. So this is one of the advantages for my Drum 909 is I think there's a little bit less menu diving, but essentially once the instrument is open, look for this grid and make sure you select this section that is white or like a lighter gray, and then click on the individual sounds. You'll notice that each sound you click on, highlighted in blue, will show a different panel that has different parameters that you can tweak. So that is how you do it. Click the specific drum sound that you want to play, that you want to affect, and then that's how you will be able to do it. So, and make sure you click on the actual gray part, because if you click down here, notice how the snare is still illuminated, but if you click up here, now we can go to the rim and tweak the parameters. Okay. Let's find more questions. Okay, can you go over control points and how you duplicate the track to add more effects? Okay, so to duplicate a track, click on the track and do Command D. Now, what I did for this project was I had 3 909s that I largely separated for different sounds. So you had kick and toms for the first, snares, rims, and claps on the second, hi-hats and rides for the third. You could do this challenge all in one 909. There's no right or wrong here. I think the advantage for keeping it as one thing is just like less to keep track of. But you're welcome to do this however you'd like. I think for beginners, it might be best to just keep it 1 909 potentially. But I don't know. I think let me know what works for you guys, and yeah, just have fun with it. Okay. As a new user, I could use a hotkey shortcut cheat sheet. Do you have one? I'll try and find one of those. But if someone can send me one, that would be awesome. And I'll try to send it out over email. All right. Lol, I'm using Roland's 909 VST. I'm like, where's the decay for the ride? And it's not existent. Oh no, fair enough. I love the stock shit. And also, yeah, I've used the stock Ableton 909 on so many songs that have gotten signed and released. It's crazy how well they work. All right, Ian, how do you lower notes 2 and 4 individually without alternating notes 1 and 3? Great question. So to do that, let's pull up a clip. And I know that obviously came into question for like the ride stuff. So let's add a bunch of rides. The way you do it, select the ones that you want to adjust by clicking and then doing a shift click. Shift click allows you to, select multiple sort of things, and then we can adjust the velocities all at the same time. So that's how you do that. All right, cool. People are answering questions. Awesome. What hotkey did you use to change eighth notes at the bottom? Okay, so, well, I don't know if this is exactly your question, but to change the grid, right click, and I normally choose 16th. To do eighth notes, you do every other note, and then you can do one note, click, and then choose while holding how much space you want to be selected and choose 2 squares, and then Command D will give you eighth notes. This is a great tool, by the way, if you want to do some cool rhythms like 3 16th notes, gives you a very funky sort of swingy rhythm. Very fun. 4 would be quarter notes, which is like your kick drum. And all right, let's keep it going. I'll do like 10 more minutes of questions and then leave you to just get after it. All right. Okay, how do I access those parameter knobs? They don't show up on my rack. Okay, so you might be using the new Ableton 909, which in that case, I would go download mine, which is just simpler. But to pop open, let's say this is your screen. If you want to pop open the sort of instrument, find the channel by clicking over here and double clicking like so. That's how you'll pop it up. And then to go to the MIDI of this instrument, just click Shift Tab. Shift Tab cycles between the instrument itself and the selected MIDI rack. And yeah, if you want to open up MIDI on any existing clip, hover, and double click, and it should pop it up. All right. Okay, so Ryan Cohen, I have a little MPK Mini. Is there a way to record automation effects live and it will record it in Ableton rather than drawing it in? Yes, pretty simple thing to do. However, I feel like getting comfortable with drawing it in is not a bad approach. If you want to get some more Jeff Mills energy, I could see how having some knobs would be cool. So all you would do is find a knob that you want to automate, click it, and do Command K. Select whatever knob. If you haven't clicked it, you can just look for the brackets. You click it and then move the knob on your MIDI keyboard that you want to control it, and it will automatically snap into play if your keyboard is working. Command K is the hotkey to enable that. Beginners, do not do that and just keep it simple because that could get confusing. That's my advice, at least. Okay, hope that answered that question. Any more tips on making it less robotic? Great question, dude. So I think a big key is rhythm, because you can tell I got a lot of very funky human rhythm, even without tweaking velocity. And so I think the biggest thing goes back to some of the first aspects that I talked about, where for my tom pattern, I'm juxtaposing downbeats with these upbeats with these up 16ths, where that combination of rhythm is what will get a lot of funkiness. Like if I only have upbeats, a lot more robotic sounding than when I have the inclusion of some of these up 16ths. I think the same principles do hold with the hi-hats. This, does work. But if that was the whole song, it would sound a little bit more robotic, and that would definitely not be very funky if everything was just like. This type of pattern can be amazing, just the simple robotic feeling. So it's not like robotic is even bad. I think for this exercise and the toms in particular, because the toms are just one drum machine, we get a little bit more life out of less robotic patterns. And so I think some of these funky hi-hats, like if I just reintroduce some of these, up 16ths, very funky. If I put everything in, I think it helps. And then also just noticing, I didn't do it intentionally, but there's things like a nice balance of elements playing at the same time versus different times. So, I think that's another thing to keep an eye out for. Are you leaving some spaces open in your song? Even when I have all these different elements, there are a handful of like moments where there's literally silence, nothing there, nothing there. And there's a handful of moments where like all three elements like play at the same time. 3 elements there, 3 elements there, 3 elements there, 3 elements there, 3 elements there. A lot of synergy, a lot of things happening as a team. And then, some moments where things happen by themselves, which I think that is sort of the balance that we're trying to achieve with these patterns. A balance between things working together versus things having their own space. And that's why this is such a good challenge, because being really good at placing sounds is such an important skill. Because back to what I was saying earlier, if you do the most intricate sound design thing, or let's say you curate the most awesome collection of samples, if you can't put them together in a coherent, synergistic way, harmonious way, it doesn't matter, and so that's why this is such good practice. Because it's like with these sounds, you can fucking make shit bump and be super funky. Okay. I am lost. Here we go. To take, great question. Kara, great to have you in the mix. If you're trying to make things feel less robotic, try. Okay, nice. Thanks for answering that question. Okay, cool. I think, all right, more questions on here. What's swing? Ian, swing is awesome. Beginners, tune this out because this might be a little bit of a confusing thing. So swing is very simple. All that we do for swing is we make every other note late, like so. Just take all these notes and push them late, and now it'll be swung. But the thing is, if you swing, the swing needs to be consistent between all of your elements. So if we do this, pretty much what we want is, if I add more sounds here, I'll just turn this into like a full house beat. Notice that I'm not moving anything off this grid. But if I have like a tom or something that's like on the grid, this is going to sound bad. Versus if it's like here, matched up with this hi-hat, like so, that will totally work. So like here is swung 909 challenge example. Very fun, very satisfying, but more complicated. So beginners, I would focus on the straight rhythms, which can also slap. Just a different feel. Okay. But with swing, you need to make a decision. Is it going to be straight or swung? If you do both, you're going to have notes that are going to rhythmically clash, and it's going to sound very messy. My automation is set to snap to grid, but is grayed out, so I can't change that setting. Do you know how to fix it? I think, so it's different from mine, obviously. I think you just hold down Option or a command while dragging and it should work. Unfortunately, I'm on an older version of Ableton that I think is just different. So hopefully that helps, Elisa, and maybe someone else can answer that question who has Ableton 11 or 10. Yeah, if you could answer that question, that'd be phenomenal. All right. When will the recording be sent out? As soon as it's uploaded. We'll try to do that as quickly as possible. Thank you, Megan, for the help. Really appreciate it. Last year's recording is also live. That is true. You gonna share the Ableton file or view, or just even a set screenshot of the arrangement? Yeah, I can share this Ableton file. Happy to do that. Swing is awesome. Literally lots. Nice. Okay, and they also call swing shuffle, correct? Yes, that is another name for it. Dope. I've reached the bottom and we're coming up on 2 hours. So I feel like this is a great moment to call it. Yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me on this lovely Saturday afternoon or evening or morning, based on where you are. And have fun with this. Send me what you do. Maybe one last thing I'll say for beginners, to bounce it down, highlight your entire song like so, and then click Shift Command R. Bounce it down. Please send me MP3s as opposed to waves if you can. I prefer that, but it doesn't matter too much either way. That's that. And yeah, have fun. I'll post on Instagram, ask me questions here and I'll try to answer as many as I can throughout the day. And then fucking get after it and have fun. Does not matter what you do, how good it is, not good, just do something and it'll be, and I think that's like one of the that might be the most challenging part of making music ever, is just letting go of your self-judgment, allowing yourself to create, and then taking that step of vulnerability to share it with someone, which can just be me in my DMs or share it to your friend or your pet or whoever. Give it a try and have fun with it. But thank you all so much. And I'll catch all of you tomorrow. Hopefully swing through if you can. It'll be recorded if not, but my hope is to also have, well, it might be a little chaotic, but I want to try and have some sort of like, breakout rooms where we can listen to each other's songs and celebrate each other's efforts and just fire each other up and give each other some encouraging energy, because we're all out here trying to be better, whether we're brand new or experienced. And yeah, I think just having a space for some good vibes and encouragement can go a really long way. So thank you guys for getting in the mix, and I'll catch y'all tomorrow. Sound cool? Fuck yes. Yes, Connor, what's up? Just saw you, dude. Fuck yeah. And shout out to all the homies. Malfunction, what up? Ed Hoffman, Two Take, Nick. This is awesome. Fuck yeah. Dude, it's lots of homies. Adrian, this is great. Yeah, thank you guys so much for swinging through. And I will catch y'all tomorrow. All righty. Peace, guys.